So quick intro from us. Raghav and me are co-founders at Fluid AI. We are been in the space for about 15 years. So back when AI was a very different animal as what it is today. And I was a CA, he was a CFA. We were both dropouts from IIM Ahmedabad and ISB Hyderabad. So we had a super passion for technology and learning. What prompted us after doing our CA and CFA to get into tech was when we won the TechCrunch Disrupt Hackathon in New York. So this was back in 2012. That's what kind of prompted us to get into this space. And along that journey, we've done some fun things. We've made Warren Buffett's official AI version, and we've also worked with a lot of enterprises globally across the world, including a MasterCard, including a Bank of America, and obviously closer to home, we worked with a lot of the organizations here. And along that journey, it's been about 5 years in the agentic AI space. So our first version was a fine-tuned version of GPT-Neo long before everything kicked off. So before we introduce our panel, we wanted to start with one really interesting experiment, right? About 66% of consumers have said that Gen AI regularly drives value from them in their daily worlds, right? That's a crazy number, 66%. When you look at enterprises, the same MIT Institute and the same McKinsey did this research, and it's only 5%, right? And why do we think that is? So here's a quick experiment to tell us why that exists.
You guys have screens at the back also, so you can see this.
So you have to start at the left arrow, end up at the right arrow. As soon as you solve it, raise your hands. Right? Start at the left arrow, end up at the right arrow. As soon as you solve it, raise your hands.
I see one hand up there. Two actually.
Okay. Cecilos, perfect, 4, 5. So we're about 15, 20 seconds in. And I feel a lot of smart people gestured to me that they're probably going to do something like this because it's actually an unsolvable maze, right? But we're so used to approaching problems, right? All I said was start from the left arrow, end up at the right arrow, right? I never said go through the maze. I never said solve the maze. But we're so used to seeing a problem we solved before and take the most complicated route or approach to solving it. And today's panel is going to be a lot about how do we leverage agentic AI in super interesting ways and really reframe the way we think about these problems, right? Apply first principles thinking so that we're no longer just thinking of the regular way of solving a problem. And that's why I want everyone to come into this panel and this session today with a very, very open mind. So quickly to introduce our panelists, we have Bernard Nguyen. I hope I did justice to the surname. I've been practicing. He's the director of engineering at NVIDIA. So and before that was at Meta. He's just flown in yesterday from San Francisco, almost a 25-hour flight. So, really appreciate him coming down for the session today. For the coder folks out there, if you've ever used PyTorch distributed training, PyTorch distributed as a library, a lot of the credit goes to Bernard. And even at NVIDIA, a lot of the distributed trainings, as well as a lot of stuff around NeMo, etc., is part of what Bernard kind of takes care of and leads. Along with him, we have, Ritvik Rathji. He's the executive director for SAP, for IS and SAP at HPCL. He's been leading a lot of the charge along with his team in the generative AI, agentic AI space, right? They were one of the first almost a year and a half ago to start deploying an agentic AI platform, including Fluid AI's agentic AI platform for almost 24 AI use cases and in a very different space, right? Oil and gas, which is a really phenomenal thing. So welcome Ritvik ji, and we look forward to your insights here. And we have V. Balasubramaniam ji. He's the CGM at NABARD, the Chief General Manager, and he also leads the analytics at NABARD, which is the regulator for all or for a large amount of the cooperative banks all over India. So it's super exciting to have Balaji here today with us.
And NABARD's done some fantastic work using agentic AI. They have, in fact, done a new process where they're going to be launching about 20 new Gen AI use cases. So really looking forward to his insights on this.
Awesome. So let's get the panel started and we will get to it. So I think the first thing that we want to talk about, right? And my first question was going to be for Ritvik ji. Uh, when you're looking at a lot of the AI that's coming, especially now we're looking at on-prem infrastructure and sovereign AI in a big way, right? The traditional model was, okay, have everything on the cloud, have it all rest over there. And suddenly now there's this new trend of deploying it on-prem. Tell us a little bit about your thinking when your team took that decision and what went behind that thought process of why sovereign AI?
Yeah, Vinav, I think you'll give me a slack because I just ran a sprint from the airport and I thought I'll be the third panelist to go. But sorry. But nevertheless, before I can catch my breath and you shot this question, see, basically, sovereignty comes and the need for sovereign AI comes from two fronts. The first thing is that when we started this, and as Avinav was saying, it was almost a year and a half, 2 years back, all if I remember, it was May, June kind of timeline in 2024. And trust me, I and my team were just getting into the generative AI space, and it was something which was not understood beyond the chat GPTs of the world. The second thing is being a PSU oil company, we are a national critical information infrastructure setup. So it also makes it imperative for us to ensure that the data stays on-prem to the extent possible, and if not, it stays within the geography of the country. So that's where I don't think it was much of a brain. It was much of an evaluation that went into that. We are very clear that we would like to experiment on-prem. There's two things. First thing is we really don't know about the capabilities of that. There are a lot of people who came and if I can use the word loosely peddled Gen AI to us before you came. So the understanding therein was also very thin. We wanted to be sure where we are venturing into. When this and with this backdrop, so it was very critical for us to be careful, cautious, and we were discussing some time back, I would say with my team, it was a cautious adventurism for us to evaluate whether just giving us value beyond the GPTs of the world. Yeah.
Awesome. And I love that word, cautious adventurism, right? Because it's actually very beautifully termed because you kind of you want to go out there, experiment, do the latest, but you also want us kind of as a large enterprise, right? And such a large public sector, you also want to make the right steps and the right footing because moving down a direction becomes very difficult to change. Balaji, from your perspective, we've done about, you're looking at about 20 generative AI and agentic AI use cases, again, completely on-prem, running on NVIDIA hardware. How is your decision making been when was cost a big factor in terms of long-term budgeting when it comes to leveraging a lot of AI within the organization and all the other decision makings, because being a regulator, I think the data is also very critical. So give us your some thought process around how you went about that.
First of all, thank you for the opportunity. Truly appreciate it. And obviously, it is an honor to be in this distinguished panel along with other members, also to be in front of this distinguished crowd. Now, coming to this particular question that you're making, see, obviously for publicity undertakings, as Ritwiji has already mentioned, taking a call or starting a Gen AI project is not at all easy. Obviously, there are so many internal committees which have to be negotiated through, then so much of convincing to be actually done. So the considerations, especially whether we should go in for a on-prem or a cloud-based application. Obviously, you ask any IT company today, they will first say, go for cloud. That is the in thing. So now in that sort of a scenario, to take a call that you should go in for a on-prem, obviously it's like swimming against the current. So there are a number of strategic considerations that we actually took. The first one is strategic independence. That is, we don't want to be dependent on one particular hyperscaler forever. So whether we can have actually truly independence as far as this particular project is concerned. The second is uh, the organizational boundaries. We wanted that entire project, whether it is models, whether it is orchestration platform, whether it is compute, everything to be within our control. So sovereign control was the second primary consideration. And the third thing is, you may have seen during the last 2 to 3 years, a number of changes have actually happened both in regulatory as well as sovereign front. If you recall, Government of India came up with DPDP Act way back in 2025, then subsequently notified the DPDP rules last year. Then RBI actually came up with their Free AI Committee, and the committee published reports a few months before. So the evolving regulatory as well as statutory requirements actually places a lot of responsibility on publicity undertakings, whether it is in terms of compliance requirements, whether it is in terms of data localization, and also to ensure that uh, controlled infrastructure. So the choice that we go in for an on-prem implementation becomes a compliance requirement rather than a technological preference. So I think that sums up.
Awesome, awesome. And Bernard, for you, you've seen it from the technology side of things, right? What changed in the last 12 months that suddenly sovereign on-prem suddenly became a very viable option, right? Was it a better set of open models? Was it better hardware like the Hopper series that's become very popular and now we have Blackwell? Is that enabling them to do this a lot better on-prem? And what are you seeing the next 6 months, right, or the next 1 year with the new tech that's coming? Is it getting even better? I know we were discussing, Vela Rubin and the new tech that's coming within the CPUs as well. So give us your thoughts. What's kind of caused this whole sovereign wave, and what's going to keep it running?
Yeah. First, before getting into that, thank you for inviting me. It's a pleasure to be here in India and New Delhi, and also with this team panelists. It's my privilege to be here. Thank you so much. So I think I'll start with, Ritwik mentioned ChatGPT. I think that was the kind of the inception of AI is now something that is doing something a user can understand. Before AI sounded like a lot of science and wasn't clear how practical. So now you have this amazing chat agent, but it was closed. It was, proprietary, and we started to see a lot of other models and companies come out with their own chats, and these are also closed systems. And the concept of open and open source has been around way before AI. I mean, if I think about the Linux operating system, or we all use Git for source control. Open source has been around for a long time, but AI being new, AI is catching up with open and open source. So something that, going to your question, has become more and more clear is the proliferation of open source AI, specifically new models that are coming out. It used to be you would hear of a new uh, significant AI model drop every couple months, and it was very easy to keep track of the pace of the industry. Uh, and and so what we're seeing now is new model drops are happening very frequently. Uh, but I want to define what open means with respect to these open models. So when you hear about all of these new models, a lot of the models, they are open in the sense that the weights are available on Hugging Face. So you and I, we can download these models, we can take the weights and we can run inference on them. We can put them into an application and use them. But as far as actually, say, retraining these models and what were the recipes to build these models, many of them are not out in the open. So I want to mention what NVIDIA is doing. So NVIDIA is very much leaning into this notion of making AI open and available, starting from the hardware uh, and through the software stack. So, for example, we are putting out our latest models are the Nemotron 3, the Nano, and then Super and Ultra are coming. And we're not just putting out the model weights, but also the recipes to reproduce these models, pre-train, fine-tune, post-train. All of this is available. So what this means for the enterprise is that now I can see not only I can choose different models, but I can see how to make my own AI platform and tailor it to my data, my use cases, and build best of breed models from these.
Awesome.
I just want to come in on something as well, and I think in my conversation, so like I think we come from the software side, right? I think what's been interesting is that when you look at models on-prem, and Balaji and Ritwikji, I would love for you guys to come in on this. Is cost a factor, right? Because when you consume these models on cloud, it becomes a token-based thing, right? But wherein when you're doing it on-prem, it's independent of that, right? If the models improve, as long as your hardware is scaled enough, you're able to budget these things better in some sense, which becomes a sort of a problem, right? If your agents are token hungry, they're consuming so much. Do you think that sort of played a role in sort of getting this back on-prem?
Yeah, Raghav, sorry. Yeah, Raghav, it obviously plays. Uh, and the bigger challenge is once you have gone into production, you have rolled out a few business use cases, then the thing starts paying back, though not in the same measure as other technology investments. But the early stage investment which goes into this is definitely an uphill task. And to get that budget for that, uh, I think Mr. Balasubramanian will also echo. It's not an easy thing because the experimentation cycle that goes into hitting that sweet spot where you say that, okay, we have arrived and we have 3, 4, 5 use cases which can be deployed in the company. Till that time, you have a lot of non-believers. But then what happens, I think JNA also like JN and Agentic are also a lot of boardroom talks. So that somehow eases the whole equation because if others are doing, there is something we also need to do. And that's how things were for us. Yeah.
See, the thing is, uh, when we are going on-prem, there is a predictability as far as the cost to be incurred is concerned. That is, we know upfront, say for example, over a period of 5 or 6 years, this is going to be the cost which I am going to incur as far as hardware is concerned, as far as the compute, as far as the orchestration layer, then the implementation costs of that. Obviously, when you go for on-prem, you tend to use open source models. Of course, models are free, but uh, when you are going for a cloud-based solution, obviously it will consume tokens. And again, GenAI being a new technology, and the biggest difference between GenAI and other technologies is that, uh, especially if you are actually implementing a RAG-based chatbot, so on and so forth, you have practically no control on for what purpose the user is actually going to use it, because you have actually put a set of what you call you created a knowledge base, and you are you are just getting into the unknown, in the sense the users can play with it, users can actually use it for in their work, or users can actually come up with completely unknown, completely use cases which you had never imagined. Whereas in the case of a regular IT project, I mean, the workflows, I mean, they cannot actually go this way, that way. So the actual extent to which your I mean, your RAG-based, I mean, chatbots are going to be used, it's completely unknown. So as a result of which, that adds that additional element of uncertainty as far as the cost which is going to be incurred when you are especially going for a cloud-based model. So, and especially uh, if you're not giving a firm number, especially in our settings, it's becoming very difficult to, it becomes generally very difficult to convince any the committees and get the approval also. So yes, the fact that I mean we went for on-prem actually helped a lot in giving a firm number what the cost is going to be over the next 5 6 years, regardless of the extent of usage, because the rest of the things anyway will be taken care of. So that actually played a significant part.
No, in fact, coming to users asking random queries, we did this AI avatar of Warren Buffett. And the number two question that Warren was asked, so we expected people to ask him about investments and, family life or whatever, was what does he think of Donald Trump? So I think very true. When you look at something agentic gen, the user's field of vision is unlimited, and you have to sort of respond to that. So yeah, that's very true. Yeah.
Absolutely. And coming to the second part, use cases is a big layer, right? And here we have a great example. We have oil and gas, we have banking, regulatory, very different industries, and we're seeing the use cases explode when it comes to AI, right? We are seeing SaaS companies now getting devalued by 20% overnight, logistic companies losing 20% in their stock market prices, because the theory is that essentially AI is going to subsume all software in the next 6 months to a year. Bernard, this is for you. As you see this trend, and then we'll get to Ritvik ji and Balaji on the use cases more specifically in their sector. But Bernard, when you're seeing a lot of these use cases come into the market, since you've done a lot of distributed trainings, you've played around a lot with it, spend your days with a lot of these models. Are you seeing the trend for use cases be this one single know-it-all autonomous agent backed by a great frontier model that's doing everything from oil and gas to pipelining to regulatory to banking to insurance to retail? And even within an org, right, from HR to, let's say, IT to the marketing teams, are you seeing this one agent that's autonomous, that's handling everything, and a bunch of tools for it? Or are you seeing the trend more specialized agents, specialized models rolling out for very specific layers of an organization when you're seeing it in the enterprise side?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I want to tie it back to the costs and the ROI that we're discussing. Yeah, fully agreed that the AI running AI models can be costly, but we can be optimized about it. So, for example, to answer your question, I would say that there's uh, different cases for different size models. So first off, what am I talking about as far as cost? I think about tokens essentially as the cost. So when I'm running a model, so a certain GPU can process tokens at a certain rate. And when I consider what models, smaller models can essentially generate a token for me much faster than larger models. However, there's a trade-off. Larger models have more weights and are able to have more intelligence built into them. Um, that said, you can what we're seeing is that you can train small models to be highly specialized and be best in class, state of the art for their specific task. So as long as that you know what the bounds of that model is, then you can have a small model definitely. So getting into the agentic AI, what we're seeing is that yes, there can be many of these specialized agents, and these are all running smaller models, and inference is much faster, much cheaper for these. Uh, where you might need, say, larger models is where you need a larger model to do deep reasoning, deep understanding in a more general sense. But you can essentially route your use cases, the ones that require the deeper thinking, more general thinking to the larger models, and the more specialized use cases to the specific agents. And we were talking about, agent to agent earlier, and here's where you can also have. I'll just, I didn't answer your question previously, but with respect to hardware, something that NVIDIA is doing is making the hardware align with where we see things are going. For example, with their Rubin, that's going to be a new CPU with a lot more threads and CPUs have always been great at multi-threading. So that's going to come into play with kind of switching between uh, different agent loads. And then we're in these rack scale systems, the memory is much larger, so you can have all these agents deployed within a rack, and they can share the same memory space. So rather than having to pass around lots of data, and all of this is essentially bringing down the cost of running a Gen AI, a very intelligent and complex AI system.
Awesome. So, there you heard it. I think that's super interesting, right? Memories, and that's already there with the new DGX Sparks, right? The memory is going to be shared with GPU, CPU, and the CPU is going to start looking slightly more, not effectively like a GPU, but closer to a GPU in terms of its threading and its performance. So that's super interesting. We're excited now for the next generation that NVIDIA is going to bring. Coming to Balaji and Ritvik ji, right? We've seen amazing use cases across both your sectors, right? In oil and gas, we have, everything from refining automations that have been done to the pipeline sensors to logistics to even the sales teams leveraging AI for training to multiple, even like going through all the data that's there. And similarly, Balaji, in Nabard, you've seen use cases across, personal assistant for teams. You've seen use cases that are across the data that Nabard will have across better processes internally, and it's spanning so many use cases. So Balaji, maybe first you can give us your thoughts. But when you're looking at deploying agentic AI not as one use case, but almost this platform approach where I'm going to take 15, 20, 30 use cases, how does that change, and what have you seen in that journey? Uh,
See, the first thing that we need to recognize and realize and recognize is that a Gen AI project is not actually similar to an IT project. When you are going for an IT project, you're actually going to automate or a set of workflows, which is, coming under one function or one particular department, or maximum a set of departments. So you take any normal application, whether it is loan management system or loan origination system or HR system or risk management system, or even an ERP system, it actually caters to certain defined functions. Now, a Gen AI project is completely different from this. A single Gen AI project, multiple models executing different agents through a single orchestration platform can actually cut across different functions, can cut across different departments, can cut across different enterprise applications altogether. So, uh, the use cases that you actually look at for the purpose of implementing a Gen AI project is basically left to your imagination. Say, that is how, when we started the internal discussions actually on different requirements of different departments, we found, obviously, thanks to, uh, where we are today, we have a single solid orchestration platform which is capable of being used for the purpose of what do you call for holding multiple models, and you can build specific agents on top of it and deliver through a single orchestration platform. And with the help of MPCs, you can actually embed across different what you call enterprise applications. So what we found is, unlike in the case of normal IT application, IT projects, it's always in the case of Gen AI, it is always better to have one project with multiple functionalities rather than having multiple Gen AI projects catering to different individual applications. So this will help in controlling of obviously having a single overarching governing principle across the entire models, agents, etc. And also it will help you to what you call reuse different models, reuse different pipelines, data pipelines which you have created. It will also help you to exercise a higher level of privacy as well as risk, which is actually generated out of this what of large scale implementation of Gen AI projects. So I think uh, architecturally, a platform approach cutting across the entire organization, uh, that is what our thinking is, that is what we have seen so far, is a better approach as far as Gen AI implementation is concerned.
Awesome. And Ritik ji, for you, if you can, again, on the same lines and also talk about how are you guys thinking about use cases when you take up, there's so much And oil and gas being a very interesting sector, I feel, when you look at retail and you look at banking, those use cases are talked about a lot, right? Customer support, call center support, standard
You're
KYC.
not so glamorous as an industry.
Exactly. But I think the stuff that happens in oil and gas, right? It's so amazing, the kind of use cases that are coming out of there. So tell us a bit more about the platform approach, as well as how are you looking at use cases within oil and gas, and then Raghav, you could maybe come in to tell us more about the general industry use cases that we're seeing.
Yeah, I think what Mr. Balsubramanian talked about is the same approach that we have also taken. And the doors are closed, and I'm dreading to say that I am not a great fan of GPTs, to be very candid. Okay. I see a lot of young faces and a lot of my contemporaries also mm, get into all the Gen AI engines that are available and then try to source their knowledge from. I somehow am of an old school thought. I would prefer to go through my own literature, form up my own solution. So that's where I pushed my team hard. And you are also, Avinav, you are also aware of that if you have to invest something, and Gen AI, like what the NABARD example is also, it's not typically an IT project where you invest and you have an ROI which is defined. Okay, you are still looking at areas which are uncertain. And when you are the proponent of something in an organization which is as large as us, it is very important that the first few experiments don't fail. And people need to see value which is coming out of that. Otherwise, what will happen? It will get derailed. It will not get the executive support that you need to keep it forward. So what we did is we looked at actually, and the other area is, sorry for the digression because I was just trying to collate the thoughts. And see, the whole issue is that you need to be very creative with what you can do with the Gen AI. It has immense capabilities. It's the application which will lead to very, very useful use cases. Okay. For one, and it's a very fond example of mine. We have periodic medical examinations which are conducted every year, and we used to have a setup which was a monolithic way of entering the reports, because unless you update your reports, you are not supposed to continue getting all the reimbursements and all that you get. And the first time when we ran it on our enterprise platform, trust me when I'm saying that the average time per employee was around 4 hours. People would read from the note, type it in, then confirm that. Then it would go through a workflow process. And by the time it got approved, all my peers in the company were shouting at me. In fact, they said, put your secretary to this job so that she would be entering our data and we can't be wasting so much of time. And then we sat together, and my team is here. So on the front row, Saman and Anamika. So when we did a bit of a soul searching with the HR team also, what we realized is that every year we have close to 5,000 people going through this cycle. And you can do the maths. And that's a huge productivity drain in a company like us. And we are a very lean organization as far as manpower is concerned. Okay, so when you're talking about 20,000 person days getting wasted in a year, sorry, person hours, it's a huge, huge drain. And that's where we got thinking that why do we do that? Let's try to use Gen AI for parsing through all that is coming in, and you're aware of that. And trust me, this, and to cut a long story short, this came down to the people who are young, like my friend sitting there. It was around 5 minutes was the time that it took. 20 seconds for the parsing, the rest because we didn't want the engine to confirm the content. Okay, what we said is that it's very human and it's very personal. And of course, Mr. Balsubramanian was talking about the TPTP part of it. So we wanted the consent of the employee before ensuring that the data was committed. But when we did the later study, the average usage time came down to 18 minutes from 4 hours. So that's something which you gift back to the company. The second thing is that while we are an oil marketing organization, we are a very large logistics organization as well. If you see our spread, we have more than 23,000 retail outlets across the country. Now we have got so many supply points. So it's a logistical challenge. And when we come out with a tender for engaging transporters, it's a huge thing, and it happens at the industry level. Okay, it's a multi-crore contract which is placed, and we want to be compliant in every stage. And this was an use case when we looked at that, and trust me when I say so, if you look at the tender bids that are submitted, it will be as tall as I if you pile that up. Okay, and that's where the power of the engine comes in. Okay, so what you need to is to be imaginative about it, where to use AI, and what are the complementing set of wrapper solutions that you need to build around it. It's like I had a boss sometime ago, he always used to tell me, Ritvik, don't think of solutioning like playing cricket. Okay, you have one bat. Now, of course, people take two or three bats, but always think of that as a golf game. Okay, you have different, you have a teeing one, you have putters. Okay, so depending on the need, so think of that whole thing. So one is to think of GenAI as a platform. The other thing is to think through the solution as an end-to-end value chain. So once you do that, then you know where the AI part fits in, where you need to get automation plugged into it, and you may also need a wrapper form which will be on top of that. So that's how we imagine our applications, and I'm very proud to say that the team has come out with a lot of fabulous ones, which is not only reduced the efforts that we had, it has improved compliance significantly, it has taken all the rigor from the field, and today people are seeing value. I think the first 6, 8, 10 months was tough for us. It was very difficult to excite people to think beyond the GPTs, but today the plenty of use cases that are coming in and which are really, really very, very exciting.
No, absolutely. And I think, I think you hit on a very important point, right? I think people just look at a lot of AI use cases as this personal assistant GPT that I'll make available to the org. But how can you take 4 hours to 5 minutes? How can you automate a refinery? How can you look at pipeline? How can you look at logistics, like you mentioned? So not just run-of-the-mill use cases, but really go deep into the business and transform it. And that's what the team at HPCL has done. I think it's phenomenal to see. So Raghav, I think would love to hear from you from a general perspective, right? What are those use cases across industries that as technology providers you're seeing in AI really deliver value, excite customers, be very, very powerful?
Yeah, so I think Abhinav, going forward from what Ritukji and Balasubramji was saying, it's basically essentially when you go beyond point use cases, right? I think a lot of time it gets very exciting. One team, one business picks up a use case and says, I'm deploying this, and they show value also. But then it comes back to that framework, right? When the whole organization needs to take it front, does it have the governance? Does it have the data security built into this, right? Does it have the budgetary, right? It's great when 15 users are using it in one part of the org, but when you're talking about use cases which affect 5,000, 20,000 employees, or tenders which are running into multi-million dollars, then it doesn't cut it when it's okay, it's great in a POC and all, right? It needs to be platformized, it needs to be in the organization. And that's where a framework, right? So you put the platform in, and then you put these use cases on that platform, right? So when we work with organizations at Fluid, what we tell them to say is, okay, plot your use cases on this framework, value on one side, and operational change or feasibility on the other side. And then you get this sweet spot, right? Where there's an intersection between where high value, high operational feasibility, go there, right? Then obviously with the platform approach, you can go down further, right? You can say, okay, now I'm going to take on to high operational risk, but there's a lot of value, so I'm going to attack those. That's when you have the political capital to sort of go ahead, and the platform has already taken care of the data security side. So that's largely the journeys we are seeing out there. One thing that's really exciting us is a lot around voice AI. I think voice is going to be a framework which not only brings in, everyone is using AI today, but there's a huge percentage of the population which is not using it because literacy and just basic technology keeps them out. I think voice AI will bring them in into the playing field. And second is AI hitting the Gen AI world, hitting the traditional ML world. I think they are seen as two separate worlds right now. I think that intersection will be very powerful when Gen AI sort of sits on top of ML. and sort of creates a wonderful perspective. And then let's say, an ML model says, okay, this is the right product to pitch to this customer, and GenAI creates a custom pitch for him, right? And maybe has a voice conversation with that customer. So those kind of powerful use cases are coming.
Absolutely. And I think with, yeah, please, please, please.
Yeah, Raghav, you touched upon a very important, the digital divide that is existing is possibly because we are very, very oriented around English as the language of interaction. Okay. And we have also done a small pilot here, and we're seeing that. If you see the kind of people who use our solutions, they're not only the people who can use and operate in English or in some cases Hindi. Well, the biggest divide which is coming in adoption of any kind of digital technology is the language divide. And I was very excited. Of course, we have not gone into production as yet, but we had done a POC and it was amazing. And I see a lot of potential in bridging this divide, this gap which is existing because of the language barrier and the apprehension of a large sector of the population for reaching out and trying out something
Yeah.
is going to be very soon bridged with the voice AI which is coming in. Yeah, thanks for bringing it up.
No, absolutely. And even within HPCL, now it's amazing, right? When logistics are running and a truck driver gets a call in their own local language when the when he brakes too harshly and the IoT sensor goes off, they can actually get a call in real time from an AI telling them, what's going on, tell me a bit more about it. And, obviously with Fluid, we've kind of done that amazing work with you guys. Bernard, coming to you, there's so much excitement, like Raghav, Ritvik ji mentioned about voice, right? NVIDIA's launched their own voice models. Persona Plex is out. Um, there's a lot of excitement around Nemo and the agent toolkit and how it orchestrates all these agents. OpenClaw is becoming very exciting, in the consumer world at least so far, right? Or as people know, as CloudBot, MoldBot, now OpenClaw. What are you seeing in the next 3 years that's exciting you most when it comes to all these AI trends? Which one kind of, or outside of these, what's exciting you for the next 3 years when it comes to AI and agentic AI?
Mhm. So, yeah, I know that there's a lot of great work happening. First on the language piece. Uh, yeah, I mean, there's different contemporaries here. I'll just mention, there's Bharat Jan and Sarvam, and there's all these uh, Indic native language models that are handling speech to text, text to speech, and so yeah, seeing that happen at the user interface, so to speak, then yeah, this really opens up AI to the general, you know, general anyone, and it's critical. I mean, this is something that I think is key to the sovereign AI message, is that the culture, the language, all of that is very accessible and usable. So with those models becoming state of the art at the front end, the input and the output, and then you have the most state of the art reasoning happening in between, and you have agents happening that can do very different tasks for you. So at least on the going to the OpenClaw, so that's more of a personal agent in the consumer space. So for example, that would be for me, I'm visiting Delhi for the first time in my life. It's exciting. I don't know what to do. So I asked OpenClaw, okay, here's my budget for a daily spend. Make sure that my hotel, make me meals, activities, plan every day, stick within that budget, and uh, if you spend more in the hotel one day, then you have to spend less on dinner, lunch that day, and then now go and book these for me. I mean, that's the dream, right? That would take me a lot of Googling, a lot of searching here, calling. That's a lot of time, and I think right now the reality is that what I described is more of like a long horizon use case, and the reality is that maybe certain some of these things, they might succeed. Like one of these steps might succeed 99% of the time, and then if you require 100 of those things to happen, 99 to 100th is meaning you're going to fail the overall job, or you'll only succeed maybe 20% of the time, which is a pretty high failure rate. So that's today. what I see happening in the next 3 to 5 years is that these long horizon tasks will actually become very, very highly successful. And and I just gave consumer examples. I mean, in the enterprise, I think Fluid, you guys here have all the great examples. I think what we'll be seeing is a much more high degree of confidence in being able to entrust agents with these mission critical tasks. I think right now we're getting a feel, right? What are the existing tasks, and a lot of human oversight, and it's great. I see it automating parts of it. What will be really exciting is, yeah, being able to handle more of these mission critical tasks, and I'll just go back to, I think something, that our NVIDIA CEO likes to say is that when AI is able to accomplish, you know, a lot of these tasks for you, it's not that you just have extra time and you just sit around and don't do anything else. It's you can do more. And the potential for every person, every employee in the workforce, to be able to be empowered is really exciting.
So next trip to India, you'll have an AI book your flights, I hope. Hopefully.
That would have been great. This time I had to talk to a couple humans to make it happen.
So soon. Uh, Balaji, coming to you, on the same vein, was when you looked at deploying agentic AI across the enterprise, did you see it more as a defensive strategy that, okay, everyone's going to have it, so we must get it in? Or did you see it as an offensive strategy that let's be early, let's get the value quickly and show the world what's possible? And what do you see 3 years from now, companies and regulators and organizations that don't end up deploying it versus ones that do it? What will that differentiation look like 3 years hence for making that decision early?
Now, the first part of your question, the answer is neither. I mean, it is neither offensive nor defensive strategy, which actually originally started this particular project. I was in charge of data, and we were looking at some mechanism because obviously the stat says that every organization has got 60 to 70% of their data in unstructured format in the in respect of files, so on and so forth. So all those traditional methods of drawing insights from unstructured data, like keyword search, so on and so forth, text analytics, etc., was not actually giving the kind of result that we were actually looking forward to. So it is at that time we started the POCs with GenAI. The first POC itself clearly demonstrated the power of GenAI actually for the purpose of dealing with unstructured data and how to extract value from it. So that is how it originated. Now, sitting here today, I can give a passion saying that I mean it is strategic, offensive, defensive, all those things. But that is not how it actually originated. The second part of the question that you asked is, I mean, I'm not the right person to say, I mean, where the Gen AI and its ecosystem is going to be, or the institutions are going to be 3 years from now, primarily because I mean, earlier Bernard was actually mentioning, I mean, companies are churning out new models every second day or second month, actually. So the pace is going to go on increasing. But definitely, the institutions which are adopting Gen AI will actually have at least three advantages, very common advantages, which it's no brainer for me to say. First, obviously, is they'll be able to derive much higher levels of productivity, efficiency, customer traction, customer satisfaction using this particular systems. When I say customer satisfaction, it's not only external but internal as well, which Ritik has elaborated in great detail. The second point is uh, companies will be able to look at each customer in its as an individual. In the sense, you'll be able to do a hyper level personalization using Gen AI, which means and company can actually give tailor services completely differently for each of us, even though the broad parameters may be same, but it can be completely packaged, uh, customized in individualistic ways. This is the second one. Hyper personalization is absolutely possible now. And the third thing which I'm reasonably confident is, I mean, some leading companies have already started doing it. Today, a lot of enterprises will be looking at Gen AI systems from an efficiency or productive perspective. But however, 3 years hence, those institutions which have actually adopted or which are adopting Gen AI right now will be looking at it as a decision infrastructure, not as a productivity tool. In the sense, they will be having, I would assume that a number of agents who are actually taking decisions autonomously within the set parameters, rather than what you call human beings actually taking those decisions. I mean, HPCL is a great case. I mean, in the sense they have already executed certain use cases where some of the things are actually cutting down the time. Going forward, as we gain confidence, as the institutions gain confidence in the output and the value which these systems are actually generating, obviously, I don't think the day is very far off when we actually delegate the entire responsibility of taking decisions itself to those systems. So I think broadly these three areas, I think very confidently we can say. Thank you.
Ritvik ji, your thoughts on the same? And then Raghav, maybe you can give us the overview of the entire panel.
Okay, so I think I'll be lying if I say that this was a strategic choice. I was one of the naysayers when this proposal was brought to me. Team is here, and I think I took them through the grinder because initially, to be very candid, it didn't make great sense to me that why should we use it and why should we invest so much of money. But that's one advantage of having youngsters in your team. Okay, they're very persistent, they're dogged, and they get a lot of consumer experiences into the enterprise, which is otherwise missing in people like us. I remember the first set of requirements which had come, and when we went through that, the interaction was totally like, what is the value that's going to come to me? What is that? Why should I give you this much of money? And trust me, it went through 2 or 3 iterations, and end of that, we came out with 20 or 24 use cases where I said, okay, it's a fair balance. We need to have a basket where the portfolio is adjusted, some which are possibly improving your productivity, something which is efficiency. And that's how the journey started. So it was not a very cut and dried story for me to tell you. But coming back to the companies which are early adopters, the first thing is they will have more use cases to go to. Second thing is that it'll dovetail into the enterprise ecosystem much more seamlessly as compared to people who will be adopting it less. The third thing is that you know what are the challenges that are there. The areas where you need to focus on, whether it is about the large language models that you look at, or you need to look at very niche but iteratively usable smaller language models. Because the third thing is that you also start developing the partner ecosystem. Because trust me, this is a domain where unless you have a good partner to handhold you in the early stage, it becomes very difficult. So my takeaway would be that see, I can't, unlike Mr. Balsubrahmanyam, I can talk about hyper personalization because we are majorly into a commodity market. So there's very little distinction between the products that we supply from our competitors, but efficiency, productivity, compliance, safety, okay, and breaking the language barrier. So these are the 5 major takeaways for us.
Nice. Raghav, do you want to wrap
Yeah,
us up?
so I think one of the key things, and I was in a discussion a little earlier, I think the key thing is agentic and sovereign AI is like water now. It's a utility. I think that's what it's going to be across the organization. It's going to cut across so powerfully. And that's where organizations need to go to the gym today, right? I think taking from what Ritvik ji was saying, you need to build that muscle, you need to build a partner network, you need to build the governance in, like Balaji was saying, you need to build the technology to be forward thinking, like Bernard was saying. And you need to get it all together, lined up today, rather than wait for it to happen a year or two down the line. So with that, I think I'd like to end the panel today. And thank you for all for being such a great audience.
Thank you. And at the end, we're also going to give, so we've launched a new book called 10x Your Productivity Using AI. It's going to be out in stores in 2 weeks' time. We're going to give 1 copy to each panelist and keep a lookout for it. But you've been a great panel, you've been a great audience. I know there were a lot of people standing at the back, listening very keenly, people trying to get in as well. So I'd really like to thank everyone in the audience for being there for the session and being so enthusiastic.